You're sitting in your apartment right now, scrolling on your phone, maybe listening to traffic outside and thinking everything is fine enough. But let me ask you something. If your city was already dying, would you even recognize the early stages before it was too late to leave? Cities don't die in one big Hollywood explosion. They rot in layers, like an onion made of concrete, corruption, and wishful thinking. By the time the news finally says crisis, the real collapse is already 3 stages deep. Today I'm going to walk you through the urban decay timeline, stage by stage, from the first hairline crack to full societal breakdown. When you understand this progression, you'll know exactly when to stay, when to harden your defenses, and when to grab your bag and never look back. You can keep believing your city is too important to fail, or you can join the tiny percentage of people who read the warning signs like a map. If you want to be in that minority, hit subscribe, drop a comment with your city name, and let's get tactical. Forget the apocalypse fantasy you've been sold. No wasteland car chases, no sudden zombie hordes, no dramatic narrator telling you when it's time to panic. Real collapse is boring at first, then confusing, then terrifyingly obvious. The trick is not to wait for terrifyingly obvious. Here's what I know with absolute certainty. 99% of people will stay in collapsing cities 2 or 3 stages longer than they should. They'll cling to normalcy, trust empty promises, and tell themselves it'll swing back while the exit doors quietly lock behind them. We're going to break this timeline into stages that repeat in almost every failing city. Pressure, fracture, shock, erosion, predation, fragmentation, and finally, functional death. Every stage has indicators you can see, measure, and map, if you're actually paying attention instead of doom scrolling. Let's start with stage 0, the illusion of stability. This is where you probably are right now, because if you weren't, you'd feel it in your bones every time you stepped outside. Stage 0 isn't everything is great, it's things are still working well enough that most people don't ask questions. In stage 0, the trains mostly run, the trash mostly gets picked up, the lights mostly stay on, and police mostly respond. That word mostly is the first quiet siren, but most people are too numb to hear it. You might notice the city feels more tired than it did 10 years ago, but life still functions. Your job in stage 0 isn't to panic, it's to document. You create your baseline: normal power reliability, normal police response times, normal store inventory, normal traffic patterns. Once you know normal, any deviation stops being a shrug and starts being a data point. Stage 1 is hairline fractures. On the surface, everything still works, but the maintenance backlog is starting to show like stress cracks in old concrete. Streetlights stay broken longer, potholes go unrepaired, water main breaks become seasonal traditions instead of rare events. If the city budget is a body, stage 1 is malnutrition. Money gets quietly diverted from boring infrastructure into flashy projects, political vanity, or plugging short-term holes. Most people never notice because they don't read budget reports. They just complain on social media when there's street floods. You are not most people. Here's how you recognize stage 1 on the ground without any fancy data. Do basic services decay in visible pockets? Are there neighborhoods where trash pickup is hit or miss? Do you see more improvised fixes, zip ties, duct tape, plywood covers on public infrastructure? That's the city quietly admitting it's losing the maintenance war. Then there's social infrastructure. Low-level crime rises, but enforcement falls. Car break-ins are unfortunate but common. Catalytic converter theft becomes a meme instead of a red flag. People stop bothering to report minor crimes because nothing happens anyway. That isn't just inconvenience, it's the early collapse of the social contract. In stage 1, your tactical move is simple: mapping. You map broken things, not just locations. You mark which areas are decaying first, which services fail more frequently, where the city silently sacrifices quality. These are the canaries in the coal mine, suffocating so the downtown financial district can keep breathing a little longer. Stage 2 is shock. This is where people finally notice something is wrong, but they still think it's temporary. Shock is a major disruptive event slamming into a city that's already structurally weak. Blackout, cyber attack, natural disaster, major riot, or supply chain crisis. The event itself matters less than how long the recovery takes. You want to know if your city is robust or brittle? Watch the recovery curve after a shock. Does power come back in hours, days, or weeks? Do grocery shelves refill quickly, or do they stay thin and weirdly stocked? Does public transit resume predictable service, or does temporary disruption quietly become the new normal? During Stage 2 shock, your goal is not to be one of the desperate faces in the line outside the store or the gas station. While everyone else scrambles for bottled water and batteries, you're running your pre-planned playbook. Secure home base, check comms, top off supplies at the very first sign of disruption, not the 10th. The dark truth is, for a lot of cities, Stage 2 shock is survivable the first time. They take a hit, stagger, patch up, limp forward. Everybody laughs a year later and says, "Remember when we thought that was the end?" But each shock strips away resilience, budget, trust, manpower, spare parts. The next shock hits weaker systems. Here's where most people screw up. They treat recovery as proof of invincibility instead of a warning. "See? We bounced back. We're fine." No, you didn't bounce. You absorbed damage. Every extended blackout burns through backup equipment. Every riot burns political capital and trust. Every flood rots one more layer of underground infrastructure you won't see until it fails later. Stage 3 is erosion. The shock is over, but nothing really returns to baseline. Services resume, but slower, thinner, worse. Police are more visible where it doesn't matter, and conspicuously absent where it does. The city quietly normalizes failure. Due to staffing shortages, expect delays. That phrase becomes the chorus of a dying metropolis. You'll see the erosion phase in things like 911, hold times stretching from seconds to minutes to try again later. You'll notice that certain crimes no longer get a response at all. Code enforcement becomes selective. Rules still exist on paper, but in reality, the city is triaging where to pretend it has control. Meanwhile, people with options quietly leave. Not in dramatic movie caravans, just in steady leaks. Moving for work, better schools. Remote job lets me go somewhere cheaper. This is your first quantitative exit signal. Watch population trends of people in their 20s and 30s with degrees and portable jobs. When they start flowing out, the city loses problem solvers and tax base at the same time. Your move in Stage 3 is to run the numbers on your own life. How many critical systems in your city are now single points of failure for you personally? One hospital you trust? One route you feel safe driving at night? One grocery chain that still has decent stock? Single points of failure are what kill fixed-position players in a failing city.
Stage 4 is predation. As central authority weakens, parallel power structures move in. Sometimes it's organized crime, sometimes it's corrupt officials, sometimes it's security groups that look like helpful community patrols until they start enforcing their own rules with muscle instead of law. While everyone else still thinks in terms of city government, the real game has shifted to territorial control.
You'll know Stage 4 is here when certain areas of the city become don't go there zones, not just at night, but at all times. Taxis avoid those streets. Food delivery won't cross those boundaries. Police only roll in with multiple vehicles, if at all. The map in people's heads shrinks, and invisible borders become more important than actual road lines. Black markets evolve from sketchy side hustle to primary survival channel. Need fuel? Need medicine? Need a part for your generator? You're not going to the store, you're going to someone who knows a guy. Every transaction moves away from official systems and into networks based on reputation, fear, or clan ties. Here's the nasty twist. For a while, life can actually feel more efficient in certain areas during Stage 4 because the unofficial power structure runs things faster than the decaying bureaucracy. But the price is arbitrary enforcement and zero recourse. Law becomes personal. Whether you get help or get hurt depends on who you know, not what's right. From a survival standpoint, Stage 4 is where you either already have your exit plan ready or you're dangerously late. This is when travel becomes riskier, but still possible. Major highways might be monitored, but secondary routes and back roads remain open for those who planned ahead. You do not want to wait until roadblocks become permanent social geography. Stage 5 is fragmentation. The city stops being a single organism and becomes a cluster of fortified islands. Some neighborhoods stabilize into heavily defended bubbles with private security, walls, cameras, and strict access. Others deteriorate into open-air salvage yards where anything not bolted down is stripped and sold. Between them, Gray zones where nobody truly controls anything. In fragmentation, shared identity collapses. People talk less about our city and more about our block, our building, our guys. Public spaces empty out because nobody trusts the crowd. Schools, if they exist, are hyperlocal. Medical care is either black market, charity, or paywall behind private compounds. The old idea of public good is dead. All that's left is our group survives. Economically, this stage is brutal. Official currency may still technically exist, but real value migrates to hard goods: food, fuel, medicine, tools, ammo, information. If you're still thinking in terms of bank accounts and credit limits at this point, congratulations. You think like the 99% who get eaten alive by inflation, corruption, or outright theft. Your mission in Stage 5, if you're somehow still in the city, is to become invisible and uninteresting. You do not want to be the household with visible abundance, loud generators, or cocky attitude. Gray man strategy becomes survival doctrine. Blend, adapt, keep your profile low, your perimeter strong, and your contingency routes open. But let's be clear. By fragmentation, the smart move for most people was to leave 1 or 2 stages ago. Staying now is a high-risk play reserved for those with serious resources, deep local networks, or absolutely no alternative. If you are none of those things, your priority should have been mobility before this stage ever arrived. Stage 6 is functional death. The city hasn't literally vanished. Concrete doesn't evaporate. But as a system, it has failed. Official institutions might still have offices, logos, even press conferences, but they no longer control events on the ground. Roads are unsafe or blocked. Utilities are intermittent at best. Emergency services exist only in name or for a small, protected elite. In functional death, time and distance warp. A trip that used to be a 20-minute drive becomes an all-day tactical problem. Route selection, timing, escort, contingency plan. People stop moving unless the risk of staying put outweighs the risk of travel. Population density drops, but danger per street increases because everyone left is either trapped, predatory, or too stubborn to adapt. This is where diseases, fires, and small conflicts turn into neighborhood-level catastrophes because nobody has the resources to contain them. A building fire jumps blocks because there's no functioning fire service. A localized gang clash escalates into a wider battle because there's no credible ref to blow the whistle. Systems that used to dampen chaos now amplify it. If you're wondering, what's my plan for Stage 6? You already missed the point. Your real plan should be about never being there when the city reaches this point. Surviving a fully collapsed city as an average civilian is not tactical genius. It's a messy lottery with terrible odds. You want to cash out of the game long before the final round. Let's rewind. The whole timeline is predictable, even if the exact triggers aren't. Stage 1, hairline fractures. Stage 2, shocks and slow recovery. Stage 3, erosion of services. Stage 4, predation and parallel power. Stage 5, fragmentation into islands. Stage 6, functional death. Your job is to decide which stage is your personal exit threshold, and then commit to that decision before emotion talks you out of it. You want a practical assignment? Start with power and water. Track every outage for 6 months. Where, how long, what official reasons are given. If the frequency and duration rise while the excuses get vaguer, you're watching Stage 1 or 2 in real time. Remember, data before panic. Fear lies, patterns don't. Next, watch crime and enforcement. Not headlines, behavior. Do people leave valuables in cars or do they strip them every night? Do businesses still bother reporting theft, or do they just silently increase prices? Do police cruise certain neighborhoods casually while only entering others in force? The map of where law still exists is the map of where the city is still livable. Then, supply chains. Pick a few staple items: rice, canned beans, basic meds, fuel, track price, availability, and rationing limits. When stores start quietly limiting quantities, that's not just a policy, that's a system under stress. When you see shelves repeatedly empty in specific categories, you're not witnessing random chaos. You're watching the city's dependency graph snap under pressure. From a tactical perspective, every stage of decay demands a different posture. Stage 0 and early Stage 1 are for quiet preparation. Build reserves, build skills, observe patterns, find your exit corridors. Stage 2 and 3 are for stress testing your systems. Run blackouts as drills, practice water discipline, test how fast you can go from normal day to ready to move. By stage 4, your choice is narrow. You either double down on staying, hardening your perimeter, forming tight alliances, accepting moral and physical risk, or you execute your exit plan while you still have enough safety margin. Waiting for stage 5 or 6 to decide is like waiting until the house is fully on fire before checking where the exits are. Here's the part nobody likes to hear. Leaving early will always look stupid to people who stay. If your city pulls a partial recovery and limps along another decade, you will be the one who overreacted. But if you stay too long and it collapses fully, there might not be anyone left to call you a fool. You have to pick which regret you can live with. You also need to think about where you're going, not just what you're leaving. Running from one failing city to another is not a plan, it's cardio. Look for regions with redundant infrastructure, stronger local food production, less population density, and communities that still actually know their neighbors' names. In a collapse, social cohesion is infrastructure. For some of you, relocating isn't realistic in the short term. Family, finances, legal status, real constraints exist. That doesn't mean you're doomed. It means your strategy has to be sharper. You map the decay stages hyperlocally, which blocks to avoid, which buildings are structurally solid, which rooftops offer observation points, where natural barriers provide cover. You turn your neighborhood into a tactical diagram, not just a place you sleep. You also quietly build resilience. Water storage, filtration, backup heat, layered security, covert storage. You're not aiming to live like a bunker mole. You're aiming to be the calm center of your own small radius when everyone else spirals. Civilization is fragile, but competence is a force multiplier. Being the one house that keeps its head during stage 2 can buy you years of leverage as things decay. Let me teach you something they definitely never covered in school. Cities are heat engines, not magical organisms. They run on energy, materials, and information flows. When inputs drop and friction rises, performance decays. All the patriotic slogans and branding campaigns in the world can't overcome the physics of insufficient maintenance, corrupted logistics, and overextended systems. The people in charge will always tell you it's fine, right up until they leave themselves. Watch where leaders quietly buy second homes. Watch when longtime insiders retire for family reasons. Watch when municipal bonds start paying suspiciously high interest. Systems scream in data long before they scream in headlines. Your job is to read the data, not the press releases. Dark humor time. If you're waiting for an official announcement that says, "Dear citizens, your city is entering irreversible decline, now would be a good time to leave," you will die waiting. There is no bell that rings at the top or bottom. The only alarm that matters is the one in your own head, backed by your own observations. So here's your choice. You can keep treating your city like a permanent, invincible backdrop to your life, assuming it will always be there to feed you, power you, and protect you. Or you can start seeing it like what it really is, a complex machine with a finite service life, already worn, already cracking, already starting its long downhill slide. Open a new tab after this video and start a collapse notebook. Outages, crime shifts, service changes, weird shortages. Give it dates, specifics, locations. In 6 months, you won't be feeling paranoid. You'll be reading a pattern. Patterns are how you decide whether to invest deeper, fortify in place, or chart an exit before everyone else panics. Then get in a car, on a bike, or on your feet and actually survey your city. Not the tourist core, not your usual commuting route. Drive the perimeter. Walk the forgotten edges. See which industrial areas are half abandoned. Notice where infrastructure is visibly failing. Recon is not a movie montage. Recon is miles, notes, and quiet observation. Finally, sketch out your personal exit trigger. Not a vague, if it gets bad. Be specific. If X number of outages hit in Y months, if shelves stay empty for Z weeks, if violence reaches these neighborhoods, I mobilize. You write it down now while you're calm, so you don't negotiate with yourself later when fear and denial team up to keep you stuck. Because here's the truth. No politician, developer, or talking head will say out loud, "No city loves you." Cities use you, feed on you, and discard you when you stop being profitable or manageable. The only loyalty that matters is the loyalty you build to your own survival, your people, and your future. You can stay plugged into the dream until the very end, trusting that someone somewhere has a plan. Or you can be the 0.1% who actually watches the decay timeline and acts on it before everyone else realizes what's happening. One path is passive, comfortable, and fatal. The other is uncomfortable, proactive, and gives you a fighting chance. Your move. Subscribe if you're part of the 0.1%, drop your city and your current stage guess in the comments, then start building your collapse notebook and mapping your exit corridors before the next shock hits. Class dismissed.